Hello and welcome to Only Lovers Book Club. We are three Latinx besties reading romance, and we take turns. And this month was Christina's turn. Unfortunately, Christina could not be here for the book club hangout, so I am here in their stead. My name is Christina. Okay, but the spelling is different, and I will put it on the screen right now. And I am a minor goddess of creativity and life. And Christina asked me to get on the call today because Tasha and Andrea have hurt her deeply and has asked to ask me to handle this for her. So I'm going to be mediating. As of right now, both Andrea and Tashai are cursed. Listen, I'm sure it was some sort of misunderstanding. So I will be asking you some book club questions. You can answer them to my satisfaction, and then you will no longer be cursed. So Christina left me some things here to look at. So let's see. Yes, the book we are discussing this month is Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall. This was given to Chris by the lovely publishers at Random House and Del Rey. Before we get into this lovely book, which I read simply by placing my hand on it with my magic goddess powers. So now I know everything about it, and I'm happy to do this discussion. Let's talk about what we're wearing and what we're drinking and what our backgrounds are. So me, again, the goddess Christina. I have a flowery kind of like living space. There's like a yellow couch. This is my human form, just like a simple scarf and more flowery elements. And currently having modelo chelada sandia picante. So that is me. I'll have Tashai introduce her cursed self next.
I'm going to go ahead and say whatever happened was probably a misunderstanding because it would seem quite extreme to get me cursed over something, considering I don't even live in the same state as Christina, but okay. I have decided to dress up as a priestess to a flower and nature goddess. So I have drawn upon my face with the colors of nature to represent the petals of springtime. I've got some glitter to represent the tears that mortals shed when they have to pacify my goddess. I have dirt on my mouth because I eat dirt as part of my sacrifice to appease my goddess, and I adorn myself with living butterflies that are not harmed in my outfit wearing. And I am drinking a wine that also has some blood orange soda in it with a little bit of spice. Blood, sure, let's say. Again, as part of the ritual to appease my nature goddess. Who I can find in this field that I frolic in, but do not get attacked by bugs because my goddess is she's wondrous and she protects me and nature embraces me and does not give me itchy ant bites.
I think that she will be pleased. Honestly, you're doing so much right now. It's great. Let us proceed to Andrea.
I also think it was a misunderstanding, and I think if anyone is in doubt, we can ask the chickens because they never lie. My background, if you can't see me, is 3 of my future seeing silky chickens. If you've read Mortal Follies, then you know there's a character who has these special chickens, and that the main characters visit, I believe, twice. And that's who I wanted to be in the book. So I'm not trying to get involved in like the drama of any specific god or goddess. I just live in my little shack with my chickens, and sometimes people come and ask me questions or ask the chickens questions. In terms of how I'm dressed, we're at the tail end of a cold front here in New Orleans, so I'm just warm in my sweatshirt, and I am drinking guava juice because I just think guava juice is just very gay and fairy looking. And it's also delicious.
I can attest that guava juice is the gayest of the drinks. Okay, so up next, before we kind of talk about the book, let's give you a little information if you don't even know anything about it, what the book is about, and who wrote it. So, Tashai, if you could read us the description of the book, and then Drea, give us a little bit about the author.
A young noblewoman must pair up with a rumored witch to ward off a curse. It is the year 1814, and life for a young lady of good breeding has many difficulties. There are balls to attend, fashions to follow, marriages to consider, and, of course, the tiny complication of existing in a world swarming with fairy spirits, interfering deities, and actual straight-up sorcerers. Miss Malis Mitzelmore finds her entry into high society hindered by an irritating curse. It begins innocuously enough with her dress slowly unmaking itself over the course of an evening at a high-profile ball, a scandal she narrowly manages to escape. However, as the curse progresses to more fatal proportions, Miss Mitchellmore must seek out aid, even if it means mixing with undesirable company. And there are few less desirable than Lady Georgiana Landrake, a brooding, alluring young woman sardonically nicknamed the Duke of Annandale, who may or may not have murdered her own father and brothers to inherit their fortune. If one is to believe the gossip, she might be some kind of malign enchantress. Then again, a malign enchantress might be exactly what Miss Mitchellmore needs. I was doing so good. With the Duke's help, Miss Mitchellmore delves into a world of angry gods and vindictive magic, keen to unmask the perpetrator of these otherworldly attacks. But Miss Mitchellmore's reputation is not the only thing at risk in spending time with her new ally, for the rumored witch has her own secrets that may prove dangerous to Miss Mitchellmore's heart, not to mention her life.
I read that with my magic powers. I read that.
I want to say, like, I did not read that before reading the book. That would have been helpful to know what I was getting into because I was very surprised by the whole, like, wait, there's a curse? There's like danger and death and like no clue. I just thought it was straight up romance. But yes, that is what I read. Alexis Hall, whatever pronouns, does not like writing biographies or talking about himself in the third person. She lives in Southeast England with their extensive collection of hats and 4 angry duck children, which I want to know more about. And Alexis also has an FAQ on their website. And so I kind of pulled up 2 that I think are really cool, if it's okay for me to share. So the first one, which I did not know, the question is Alexis Hall your real name? I assumed it was. But Alexis says, nope, it's a pseudonym. I have a day job that I love very much, but it's not compatible with writing queer romance. And apparently, I guess some people have said like, oh, that's so weird. You've been writing under a pen name for so long and we don't know like who you are. And Alexis says, I'm not sure if the notion of a real name is very helpful. Our real names are simply those names that feel like who we are. I've been Alexis Hall for nearly a decade now, and that name is as much mine as the one I was given when I was born, which I really liked. And then the other one that I marked, just because I think it is good for our book that we're reading, is someone asked, why don't your historical novels reflect the reality of attitudes to LGBTQ people in that period? And the gist of it is, it's a long answer. And you can go on the website and read all these in more depth. But Alexis basically says, who knows what people were even thinking, you know, because the farther back you go, like the more you don't know. We don't actually know how people who died a century ago actually felt about anything, because all we have to go by, right, are like the written records of those periods, which were being written by like the rich and powerful and, you know, people in charge. And so 1, we don't know what we don't know. And 2, Alexis specifies, I am a novelist, not a historian. I use historical settings to explore themes and ideas I like and find interesting, and I don't feel any particular obligation to hold to any standard of realism that doesn't make for a good story. Nobody should be trying to learn history from my books. So there you have it. Alexis Hall,
Let's
everybody.
fucking go.
That's amazing.
What a fantastic answer. I'm going to put the FAQ in the description for folks who might want to read a little bit more about Alexis Hall. Thank you so much for reading the description, for reading about the author, and sharing that wonderful, that wonderful note. Now is the part where I talk about why I picked this book. And part 1 is I definitely wanted to read more books that I had at home. Maybe like more of a combination of books that I've that I just own rather than just buying a bunch of them. I don't mind buying them, but I just know that I have a lot of really great stuff that I've gotten from publishers before, and I've wanted to read this one with y'all. I wasn't sure about this one at first. I've read A Lady for a Duke, and I really enjoyed that. That's kind of like very straightforward, angsty. There was yearning, but it was very, very good. But I kind of wasn't sure about a story being told from the point of view of another character, like that the romance wasn't being told from one of the points of views of the romantic leads. So I just wasn't sure, but I picked it up and it was kind of like right place, right time. I really enjoyed the book. I don't think it's like a perfect book, but I had a lot of fun reading it. And so I went ahead and like blazed through it. And I'm like, you know what? I think about when I was halfway through it, I was like, okay, this is gonna be my pick for for January. So I went ahead and picked it up and I read it and it was good. Okay, we've arrived to our spoiler alert. So you know a little bit about the book, you know a little bit about the author, you know that these two girlies are cursed. Who knows what happened? But this is your spoiler alert. If you don't want the full contents of the story spoiled, stop here. Go read the book, come back, listen to our discussion, let us know what you think. Don't forget to leave us a comment. I'm curious to hear y'all's overall impressions. What did you think of the book? What did you think of the style? We're going to talk a little bit about the fairy narrator. We're going to talk about the world building and other characters. So just give me like an overall, what did you think?
So I was the last one to finish this book. And I know it's because it took me a really long time to like get into it. And it's all because of the narration. Like it all comes down to the way that the narration works in the story. It's not my favorite style, especially if it's like something that is romance specific. Like I need to, for the most part, be in a point of view of someone that's involved in what's going on to get into it, because it was just really hard to get into the story and to like care about this relationship and care about these characters because of the narrative device, which like sucks because this was like right in my alley. Like it's a great time period. It has fantasy, it had queer romance, there were curses, there were like goddesses, there was bloodshed, like everything ingredient wise was like great, but just the recipe, the way it was like done, it just didn't hit for me. And it took me a long time to be able to like get through it. And I started off like totally fine. I was like, I started off reading it and was like getting through it. But then like the length of it, along with the way that the narration works, it just took me so long to get through the book. And I was like frustrated at that because I really wanted to enjoy the experience more than I was enjoying it. So what I ended up doing, honestly, is after a couple of days, there were some sections where I just skimmed until I would get to dialogue and would see like what was happening in the scene. And then I would read a little more and then I would skim until I got to dialogue, because so much of it was like description from the point of view of this narrator. And I'm like, dude, I don't need to know all these details. Like you're making it much harder for me to follow along with like, oh, the goddess is pleased. It was just making even more so. Hell yeah. That's my jam. Damn it. I'm jelly beans now. All I had was a chicken salad.
For those who are not watching, the goddess
is eating
received an
Taco
order
Bell.
of Taco Bell.
Yes, one of my many supplicants have provided me with a trio of spicy potato tacos from Taco Bell and a Baja Blast.
Baja
and
Blast. That's what's up.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to share. I felt like, you should.
No, it's okay. I'm just
should
very
know
jealous.
what it is to be a goddess. People should know that this is.
Yeah. That's what I want in life. I made a impossible chicken salad, so it was fine. Whatever. It wasn't a gordita. Anyway, I feel like if there are people who enjoy this kind of narration, they're really gonna like the story because the characters are really fun. I love Miss Bickle, the like bestie. She's fucking crazy. I loved her. She was so weird. Like, I dug her personality. She's my favorite character. Anytime that she said anything, I was like it was so much fun. And like the fantasy of it all was super fun. But yeah, between the narration being just like, and there was like a big chunk in the middle that I kind of was like, what is, like, we're kind of like meandering. I don't really understand what's happening. And so like I also wish that like a chunk of it had not been there, because when you kind of like get to a climactic point and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm only 40% way done with the story. Like, what else is gonna happen? Like, we figured out who cursed her. Like, what else can happen here? And so then I was like, oh my God. It's like when you sign up for a hike and you think it's gonna be a certain length, and then you get there and it turns out you misread it. It was a much longer hike than you thought it was gonna be, but you know that it's a really good hike, and so you really want to go along with it. But the more you keep going, the more you keep wondering, like, have you gone too far? If you turn back now to get to the car, is it like worth it? Because if you get to the end, there's a tram that'll take you back to your car. So that was kind of the long and short of it. If you like the style, you'll really like the book because it's really fun when push comes to shove. But for me, it was a struggle.
Oh, that's so frustrating too, because, well, we'll talk about it. But I was hoping, I was like, oh, I think Tasha will be like this because this is like historical. And the person that I was really worried about that wouldn't enjoy it was Andrea, because of not only is it historical, but because of the style, the structure of the story, and the narration choice. But it turns out, I mean, Drea posted on Instagram, and I think she liked it. So let's let's turn it over to Drea and hear from the horse's mouth, or the chicken's mouth.
Yeah, I definitely liked it. I can totally see what you're saying, Tashai, about the writing style. And I will say, in terms of like the romance, I, like Chris, have also read A Lady for a Duke, which I highly recommend, especially because I haven't read a lot of historical romances with like trans leads. That one was very much like historical romance, like pure genre, you know, the yearning, the longing. And so in terms of romance, like, I think that's what I prefer in my historical romances. But I really enjoyed this book. And I do think part of it was that I was coming off of reading The Blue Castle, which, if you follow me on Instagram, you might remember my whole post. I was a big Anne of Green Gables fan when I was a kid. I know a lot of people were, and I don't think a lot of people know that L.M. Montgomery also wrote an adult romance novel, which was not very popular back in the day. Like, people were definitely more fans of her children's books, but I had just read that before this, and it has that very like old-timey sort of narrative style that weirdly is very similar to like the fairies narrative style in this book. And so I think that prepped me and primed me a little bit. I don't know, it took me back to like high school English class and like reading se me va. What is it? The Shakespeare play?
A Midsummer Night's Dream?
Yeah, A Midsummer Night's Dream. Like, I was in it in high school. And so I don't know. I liked the narration. I liked the vibes. It didn't bother me. I liked that it had all these different, like, it was kind of like a mix of genres, I think. It was definitely not, I don't think I would even classify this as a romance. But I don't know what I would classify it as either. But I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I enjoyed the narrative style, but I also enjoyed the book. I also love the bestie character. She's definitely, I'm gonna say it. I know Chris hates when I call things, but I feel like she's a front runner for the Super Sidekick OLL Award of 2024.
I agree.
She was just great. I don't know if Alexis Hall is planning to make this a series, but if they do, I would hope that she gets her own book because she was hilarious.
I want her to get kidnapped by fairies. I feel like she would have a great time.
Yeah.
There is a second book in the series,
Oh.
like the Mortal Follies series. I think it focuses on the brother instead. It involves her. I do like it, but it involves the brother instead. All right, y'all. Okay.
I mean, he's fine, but
She's
no,
in it. Okay. I don't know. I'm
but
gonna
yeah,
read it.
I know you were worried. I know you were worried about me, and I was worried about me because I knew you were worried about me, which is why I was like, oh no, I'm so you had already told me it was not my style. You had told me it was going to be long for me, so I went into it full of trepidation. But no, it was fine. I liked it. I definitely liked it more than Tashai.
Yeah. I mean, and that's fair. We don't have to like all like it in the same levels. I just think it's interesting that I was definitely predicting Tashai being fully on board. And when you were like,
Yeah.
I am delighted by the book, I'm like, oh shit. Meanwhile, I haven't heard anything from Tashai. So I like just text Tashai and I'm like, so how's it going? Tashai's like, I'm working on it, okay? I'm like, is it the narration style? She's like, yes, yes, it is.
Like someone talking at me and then describing things to me. I want to know why they're into each other. He doesn't even care. He's just in it for the plot.
Yes, we'll talk about it. We will talk about it. But basically, I think I'm sort of in the middle. I really enjoyed this book as well. But I have to say that I thought this book was long, like too long. This the middle did get really convoluted and I felt like it could have been wrapped up pretty quickly. I will also say that this isn't my first Alexis Hall in the fact that I read Lady for a Duke and I think I read something else not of the romance genre. The Mysterious Affair of the Letter, I think it is. And it is not romance at all. It's more like actually like more like weird fiction, historical steampunk weird fiction. That plot also meandered. If you take a look at Alexis Hall books, those are thickums. They're thick books. She's got a lot to say. And I'm not sure if all of it needs to be said. So I did feel like in Mortal Follies specifically, I was charmed by the narration, but I was also like, I grew tired of it. And then I was like, man, we have so much to go. So I just kind of, I don't know. I did not start skimming. I definitely pushed through because I really was interested in what was going to happen in the story, but I could see how that would get really tiresome. I think this book could have been shaved down, definitely in the middle, because I feel like the oh, now we're cursed, but now we're not cursed, and now we're doing this, and now we're doing that, and it definitely felt like the middle of Howl's Moving Castle, where we're running around and doing a lot, and I felt like we were getting stuff done there, and I felt like here we were just kind of chasing our own tail story wise. I'm like, we've already done this. Why are we doing it again? This is bizarre. How did you feel like? How did you feel about I guess the world building? How did you feel about the balance of the world and the relationship that was kind of like blossoming between the two characters? So we have a lot of little bits and pieces. I would consider this a romance, but I definitely would not consider this only a romance. There's a lot going on. The story has a lot going on, but the main focus is between these two characters and, you know, what's going to happen. What did you think of the world as the fairy described it? The romance as the fairy described it, you know? What did you think of those things?
I liked the world building. I thought that it was really fun. I thought that it was interesting to be in a story where you're having the like 1800s polite society rules, but then it's like, oh, this person's got the pox again. Like, we got to go sacrifice a sheep. Like, there was like a really funny kind of integration between because polite society has a very rigid structure, a lot of rules about what is and isn't appropriate, and so it's very guided by society rules. And then it's mixed with this other world that has rules that can't really necessarily coexist with polite society, but have their own set of rules, but the rules are absurd. So it was like really funny to kind of jump back and forth between like, oh, you can't walk down with this man by yourself, to like, oh yeah, these pools, people will throw animals in there to try to appease the goddess, and like you can like, oh yeah, I used to be friends with her, but then she like went and became a priestess, and like, I don't know, I'm not about that. I'm trying to become like a wealthy banker. I can't be friends with someone who like is a priestess for a goddess. Like, she's got a reputation. So I thought that that was like really, really fun. And like, I wish that there had been as much like detail paid to showing us the relationship as showing us the world, because I was like in a couple paragraphs in, a little bit like the dress disappearing and everyone being like, what's going on over there, but not necessarily paying it too much attention because these things happen. I thought that was like funny. It was funny to be in that space.
So, Drea, what did you think of the world building? I like what Tashai brought up about the rules of this society versus this world's rules. I did enjoy that as well. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I really like that too. And I feel like they I am not the best person. Like, I will never notice if something is historically accurate. Let's put it that way. I just don't read enough historical fiction. I don't read enough history books. And so for me, when I'm reading a book like this that also mixes things up, I actually enjoy it more because I'm like, well, who knows? I don't know what's real and what's not. And so it really just lends itself more to my enjoyment of the setting because I'm never quite sure how much of it is like factual. Um but yeah, I really enjoyed not just like the big picture kind of world building, but I also enjoyed like all the little pockets of scenes that added to it too, like the whole place they went to with the stones, and or like the baths, like these places felt like very real even though there were all of these like strange things happening around them. And they go to different towns and different places, and they go on journeys and stuff, and so it just felt like a very expansive world, like it wasn't just this like insular town, but it really felt like, oh no, this is like the real world, and it's like endless. So I enjoyed it.
Cool. Well, I'm glad there was something y'all both liked. And then how did you think? Well, okay, so we've talked about the style of narration, but what did you think of the narrator? Like, what did you think of the personality of the fairy who was talking? I know that the gimmick got a little old after a while, but I thought it was hilarious. And it's not the first time that this kind of thing happens to me. We talked about it in our Only Lovers Awards. Go watch that. How I used to have a diary that I called Tashai, and I like literally was like this like puckish little fairy reminds me of Tashai a lot. And in my mind, like Tashai was narrating it to me. Like, you were telling me the story. Listen, you're a nosy little Libra. You like the tea. You're small. And I just felt like you would be a perfect voice for this. And so I was inclined to like the fairy a lot. I thought it was really funny how they kind of were like, "Oh, I don't care. I don't care about this. I don't care about that." And you're just like, "You clearly care. Don't stop lying." But the rules for fairies and whatever is like supposedly different. I did like that. At one point he helps her. I think he just can't help but insert himself just a teensy tiny bit because he's like rooting for them so hard. What did you think of the narrator and all of that?
I liked the narrator. No, I thought it was really funny. Like, I thought the personality was really funny. I thought the way that they were talking about stuff was really funny. It just was a lot. Like, if it had like started off like that and then shifted, or if there had been a transition at some point where he was like, I'm really tired of talking, so I'm just gonna like hop onto their shoulder and let you hear it from their point of view, something like that, then like I would have been much more sated. But no, I thought that the narrator themselves was really funny. Like, I thought they were really funny. I like how every time the bestie was like, well, yes, fairies are really smart because blah blah blah, he's like, obviously she's the smart one of the group. She knows what she's talking about. I hope she has an encounter someday that brings her like luck and blessings because she'll know what to do. And then every time the straight guy, like the straight man brother, was like, oh, this is a bad decision, blah blah blah, he'd be like, you're
No,
not
the brother
wrong.
was gay, wasn't he?
I meant straight man, like
Like just a rules kind of
the
person,
rule
Got it.
following.
buddy
Understood.
kind of.
Yeah, the like black and white, like square personality. When he's like, this is dumb, this makes no sense, then the guy was like, clearly this man has no imagination. We won't bother with him anymore. Let's go follow this friend and like follow her story because she's more interesting. So I thought that was really funny too. I really liked the little character.
So for me, I I don't know anything about Alexis Hall, okay? But I felt like this was actually Alexis Hall telling me the story. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a friend like or not a friend but an acquaintance, maybe like in college or high school, who was always like doing those annoying voices, and you're like, oh, drop the accent, like that's not how you talk, but they would want to spend the whole day talking a certain way. Do you know the kind of person I'm talking about? That's what this book felt like. I was like, is this Alexis Hall, like their like inner voice, you know, that they've like this. Anyway, that's what I was picturing in my head. I was like, you know what? Clearly Alexis got to a point in their career where they were like, I'm gonna write a whole book like this because I can, because that's what makes me happy, and because that's the voice that I sometimes narrate things with in my head when I'm walking down the streets of England. So that's how I interpreted it, but I enjoyed it.
Listen,
Throwing
when you
shade
say
at our Cockney days in college. Wow.
that's what I'm saying. Like, the person that you're describing is to shy. To be
Don't
fair,
act like
to
you
shy in
didn't.
me, to shy in me, to shy
I was
in me.
about to say, don't
We
act
were
like you
both-
didn't go
We were
British.
both getting looks. We were both getting looks.
Like, I'm not the only one who went British for half a day. Ma'am, we both read Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging.
Yes, we adopted an atrocious accent, and we just ran with it. And everyone was like, "Whoa, that's such a great accent," and I'm like, "It isn't," but okay.
But that's how I like read this book, as like, this is Alexis Hall's accent. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. I see what you mean, and I think that if that's true, then Alexis Hall and Tashai have a lot in common. Okay, well, I'm glad you like the narrator. I really love the narrator, whether it was inspired by Tashai or Alexis or what have you. Let's talk about the romance. So we have, you know, actually, going back to the narrator, I also loved how the story would break off and we wouldn't stay with the main characters. Like, okay, this is boring, I'm gonna go somewhere else. And that's how we got a lot of the extra scenes. It made me angry when the fairy would go to the other characters and be like, look, out of a sense of loyalty, I will not be sharing what I heard. And I'm like, then why did we go? Why aren't you telling me? It's so irritating. But I did think it was really funny, really quick, really witty. I was like laughing at a lot of the jokes. The thing about that he made her like the best hot bath ever. He's like, took water from the Mediterranean and boiled it in the fires of Mount Vesuvius, and she didn't seem to notice that was the best bath of her life. That scene killed me. That scene killed me dead. I thought it was so funny. It did go over long, but I do want to say that the fairy never lost his bite throughout the book. The jokes were still good. So I have to give Alexis Hall her flowers. And just now, a big bouquet of flowers just fell onto Alexis Hall's lap. Okay, but let's talk about the romance. What did you think of the romance between, oh man, I already forgot her name. I mean, I know the Duke. The Duke sounded so hot. Malis? What did you think of the romance between Malis and the Duke? What did you think of their relationship, like their interaction?
Okay, I will say, as the resident always falls for the emotionally unavailable love interest person of our group, it did not work as much for me here. I think it just I think it went on.
Testing me. She was testing me.
It went on for a little too long for me. I think, like, I really like characters who are emotionally unavailable and who are like, no, I'm not going to give in to this. But I like it when I can feel how hard that battle inside of them is, And I feel like I didn't see enough of that inner battle with her. And so it just felt like she was being icy because she felt like being icy. You know what I mean? Not because she was trying to keep the fire at bay, but just because all there was ice. Like, I didn't see enough of that behind the scenes. And for me, it also went on like it went on for too long. And then when it got sexy, it almost felt like de la nada. Like it was like too fast. There was like no lead up to it. in real life, I think they make a good pair. I think they're compatible, and I think they can bring out the best in each other. But in terms of like the book romance, um, it didn't quite work for me. Like mentally, I could see them together, but like my heart was not beating for them. And I think it was just, yeah, those little things. I needed to see more of that like battle, and I needed it to be a shorter battle.
I agree because, again, I think that because of the style the story is told in, you don't see any of the feelings developing. They are just like they keep bumping into each other. And then the bestie is like, "Oh yeah, you're like into her." And it's like, "Oh, are you? Are you into the Duke?" Like I couldn't tell because there was no face to see. There was no like body language to read, and we weren't in Melis's point of view. So like I could not tell that Melis had started to fall for the Duke. The Duke just kind of kept showing up. So then it's like for me there wasn't any like relationship development. Just suddenly Melis is like, "Well, let's do it." And the Duke being like, and I'm like, I didn't even think Melis was comfortable with hooking up with a woman because there's like all you get for so long is like, "Oh no, 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 society, blah blah blah." And then suddenly she's like, "Well, why won't you hook up with me?" And the Duke is like, "What?" I feel like it kind of came out of nowhere. And then, like you said, then suddenly they're hooking up, but it's like very hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. And it's like, why are you still chasing after the Duke? Clearly they don't like you. They're like, it got to a point where Melis was just like throwing herself at the Duke in a way where I was like, girl, like, stop this. Like, this is embarrassing to watch because it's like, say no to me once, then you're like, oh, a broken Duke whose family has passed away and has gone through like trauma. Say no to me like 7 times, like fucking get it together, Melis. Like go the fuck home, or like please stop.
And it's like, it's not even like, oh, I'm saying no to you, but you can feel me gazing longingly at you, and like you can smell my excitement. I don't, like, give me something. But like with her, it was like, no, walk
No, it's
away.
like you're just another
No,
chick. Like
bye.
I'm not.
I agree. This courtship was brutal, and I was not altogether convinced. I was not swept away. Mainly because what you're saying, Tashai, is true. I think that, all the Duke was like feeling all of those things, and Melis was definitely going through all of those things, but it was hard to translate that through the fairy story. And so I did not feel really connected. And yeah, after a certain point, like Melis estaba demasiado sobra. I was like, girl, get out of there. Leave. She's just not that into you. I mean, even if she was, me as like her friend, like Miss Bickle should have been like, girl, let's go. Yeah. Like even the most idealistic person would have given the fuck up. I'm like, you know what? Clearly you want to be alone, and that's on you. I've shown you how committed I am. And I think that it's not that the Duke was irredeemably just like a huge bitch, but also she was. And I found very little to like about her. Like, when we have like a Duke character or a noble character of this, society, we have a Darcy situation. There's something there. And like Andrea was saying, there really wasn't anything here. Like every single interaction, she was a motherfucking bitch. And I was like, Melis, why do you like her? Like, she wasn't even giving off like stud energy. Like, she wasn't giving off like, wow, like she could bend me into a pretzel. She just didn't seem interested. And I was like, this is just a crush. Move on.
When they have that like super intense scene with the chair, right? And then after that, they start like hooking up regularly, but it's like still like ice fest over there. I feel like maybe Alexis could have had that happen like in the beginning, like maybe concoct some way where like they just have sex really early on, and she continues to be like, I just want you for sex. And then at least it would make more sense that like Melis is like, oh my God, these are like the orgasms from heaven. I am obsessed with you. And then you can also maybe sort of see the Duke like melting, because it's like, oh shit, is this like not just sex for me? Like, I think maybe something like that could have worked a little bit better.
It has
Yes.
worked better in a different book. An Island Princess starts a
Yeah,
scandal.
yeah,
That's the kind
exactly.
of interaction that you're looking for
Exactly,
here.
because I think here, like, the sex happened too late, and because it was so late, then I was annoyed that the relationship didn't change because of it, and it just continued to be this, like, ella tirándole encima and the Duke being,
Needless
like, all
begging.
icy. Yeah, so it was like the sex didn't even, like, change anything, and we were so late in the book that
Mhm.
yeah, I think maybe I would have preferred that the sex happened earlier, even if it was with, like, zero emotional
Even if it
attachment.
had just been a kiss, even if it
Yeah,
had
yeah,
just
yeah.
been something like that, I think that
Mhm.
it would have given Malis something to work with, because I felt like she had nothing to work with here. I was like,
Yeah.
girl, why do you like her? She's not good for you. Walk away. There's a difference between, like yearning and pining and like sapphic longing, and then like being a real pathetic person.
There's
Just
a difference between hard to get and indifferent.
yeah.
And it's like, they end up making such, like, huge sacrifices for each other at the end that I just felt like they hadn't, or like you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying, like, don't do nice things for people, but they were just such big sacrifices that I was like, I would have to be in, like, a committed relationship with someone that had been going well for a really long time for me to be the whole, like, take me instead of them kind of, like, person.
Yeah.
I've been with Ivan for 6 years, and if someone's like, "Give us a finger," I'd be like,
Okay, wait, but this okay. Okay, the scene on the first time they have sex, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, how do you I don't know what the Duke's plan was. I don't know what the game was. I'm just like, why did this happen in this way? Like, why it
Okay,
felt
you know what it reminds
they hadn't talked about
No.
it. And that sometimes I'm like, I know that circumstances in books, they need to happen a certain way for things to, like, that one little guy getting slammed on the table, that was sexy, but I'm like, they didn't really talk about if they wanted to play rough, and I don't know how good I felt about that. They didn't talk about, they didn't set any of the groundwork for what happened, which is that Malus gets tied up to a chair, and the Duke just has her way with her until she like cries tears of joy. And I'm like, okay, good for her, good for you, but like, where the fuck did this? And then she leaves her there. Then she leaves her tied to the couch. And I'm like, what was this? What happened?
You know what it reminded me of? That Christmas novella we read as a bonus episode, that, like, Sapphic Santa one that you and I read, where it's like the first time they get together, it's in, like, a bathroom at work, and there's, like, no talk whatsoever, no, like, do you consent to this, doing this in a really public place? Like, that's what that reminded me of, because not only there's, like, so many levels, right? It's like, not only is it sex that involves, like, light bondage, it's also Melis's first time having sex, period. And they're also, like, out in the open where, like, anyone could walk in. And then she also leaves her tied up without any knowledge of whether Melis knows how to untie anything, or so there were just, like, a lot of levels of things that, yeah, it was weird. It was like a sexy scene, but, like, the entire context around it was not sexy. And again, I just felt like it came out of nowhere after all the stuff from before. And so, again, surprisingly, because usually I am into those kinds of scenes, I was not a huge fan of it here.
Yeah, it was not working. Do you have any thoughts about it, Tashai?
I had to go back and reread because my eyes were glazed over by the time this stuff started happening. And yeah, my reaction was like, it felt like the goal was to show that the Duke was like very experienced and like had lived a life of like hedonism and needed things and did things that Malus couldn't necessarily deliver on. And so it was like her showing Malus, like, well, this is what my world is. But it's like, I don't think it hit quite right, because it's not like it was like, well, I'm going to show you the things that I need. Do you know how like in 50 Shades of Grey, they're like, he's like, I want to like hook up with you, but there's a contract involved because like the things that I do, I'm very private about it, and I need to know that there's like enthusiastic consent because it is like BDSM. Whether it is or not, to be determined. But there's like the conversation of like, well, the things that I'm into aren't vanilla. So you need to understand what that means. I can like show you and then we can stop whenever. But that didn't happen. It was just like deep end. And then it's like that would probably traumatize someone realistically. So yeah, I was like,
I think that it was supposed to come off as, yes, I'm going to teach Malus a lesson, but it was a mean one. You know what I mean? It was not nice. It was, I'm going to put you in your place, but not in like a sexy way. In like a, wait, what the fuck?
Leave me the fuck alone because you can't give me what I want because what I want is this.
And so I didn't understand, right, what Dre was saying, like the lead up to it. And then afterwards, how they still kind of keep together. I did not understand these two characters' chemistry at all. What were you gonna say, Dre?
I was just gonna say that even that like didn't make like that much sense because you're right. It gave off the vibes of like, I'm gonna teach you a lesson. This is what I'm into, and you can't keep up. But then even when Malus proves that she can indeed keep up and drops by her bedroom afterwards, it's not like the Duke is like, oh. Do you know what I mean? It's like there was like no point to what she did because regardless of how Malus reacted, I feel like the Duke would have went about business the exact same way. You know what I mean?
Meh, not interested.
Yeah, like there's
not
nothing...
interested. It was like indifference. It was like to embarrass her.
Yeah.
It was to prove that she didn't know anything about sex. Because she's like, you can't even say the words. Why would you think I want to fuck you? You can't even say the word fuck. And then later she's like, fuck. And it's like, that's not like, no.
Yeah. Girl. And that's why I'm saying like, it's like, it was annoying to go from that to like, I'm going to give my life for you and like throw myself into the bath for you. Because again, I feel like we've read books as a book club that have that kind of vibe between the main character and the love interest, but it's just done in a way where you can still see the soft interior, you can still see like the inner battle, and so you're willing to forgive the kind of icy tough exterior because you know that there's more to it. But here we don't see that there's more to it, so we kind of have to take it at face value.
Okay, well, I just wanted to talk about that because I felt the type of way about it. I was like, oh, I'm glad. I mean, I'm happy for you. Are you? How do you feel about this? And I still stand by like the romance actually being the weakest part of this. We kind of talked about already our favorite characters. I know both of you really enjoyed the best friend character. Were there any other characters? And then obviously the priestess that had the chickens in the backyard. Did you were there any other characters that stood out to you? Not necessarily as super side character like Miss Bickle, but what did you think of, let's say, for example, Malus's parents?
It's one of those things where it's frustrating because the relationship between the parents proves that chemistry could have worked in this narrative style. But we didn't get it with the protagonists. We got it with like the parents and their relationship. And so I thought they were funny as hell. I really liked her. I really liked Malus's parents. And I really liked the goddess in the bath because she was just like, give me these things and we can talk. And just I feel like the visual of that would be like really cool to look at. So I think those are my faves. But Miss Bickle is still my tops because she's just so fucking out of it. She's got an answer for everything.
Yeah, no, I agree. She was definitely my favorite too. And I really would love to read a book where she just like follows a nymph into a river or something and then gets like trapped. But it's one of those things where it's like, those movies where like someone gets kidnapped, but then the kidnappee drives the kidnappers bonkers. Like I feel like that would be her. Yeah, she was my favorite. I think my next favorite side characters were definitely the parents. They were just like their little dynamic was really funny. And the fact that they were so like science based. And like the dad's first reaction is like, oh, you're cursed. Well, maybe we can like freeze you until we figure out, you know, and then we just like shock you back to life. And the mom's like, no,
Are you
you
trying
haven't.
to make gunpowder again?
Yeah, mom's like, no, you haven't even perfected that. So obviously we're not gonna. Anyway, I thought they were really funny. But honestly, I thought this book had a lot of really good side characters and like really lots of interesting characters that I would want to know more about. I thought the whole witch thing was very funny, but yeah, just I feel like every character, like that one character who could see the fairy narrator. I was like, you seem sexy. Like,
Right?
I don't know what it was. I was like, I don't know the energy that you are giving off. I'm like, what is the story here?
Very sexy energy. I was intrigued as well. So we've talked about the story, we've talked about the romance and the spice and the characters. And I think these are all really good questions, but as the goddess Christina, I don't know if you've done enough to get yourselves uncursed, honestly. So this one isn't in the list of questions that Christina wrote to me, but I have to ask it just so I can, you know, finally decide what I'm to do with you. Seeing as how you are cursed, and the questions won't do, what else will you sacrifice in order to get this curse lifted off you? I know I haven't really started off yet. You know, I haven't really like related on really thick, but starting tomorrow, these misfortunes are going to start following you. Your dresses are going to evaporate off your body. You're going to start getting boils. And so I just want to know, like, if you didn't want that to happen, what would you sacrifice for me, for Christina?
This is a tough one because I'm gonna be in court tomorrow and I can't be having my court clothes disappear. I just got that blazer, okay? um, wait, does it need to be a life sacrifice like in the book?
The sacrifices in the book are very similar to the sacrifices that would need to happen, but I'm open to hearing it out. I'm open to hearing you out. I am a
Right.
benevolent god.
I only ask because, you know, I've been vegan for 10 years. So I don't know. Maybe if it was my best friend in mortal peril, but it would take something real big for me to stab a little baby cow. Would you take a shipment of Puerto Rican coffee? Straight
That
from the
would
island. Straight from the island.
It would be acceptable. And what about you, Tashai? What do you offer? No loopholes, no cheating. Christina told me about you.
She's a liar.
No take backsies. No, I'm gonna give you this, but then I'm gonna go around and steal it and give you the fake one or something like that.
I'm keeping my dog. I guess I could probably give up smoking weed for like
Oh
an
shit.
amount
That's
of
way
time,
better than mine.
for an amount of time equal to the upset.
That is also acceptable. I like how both of your sacrifices are like substances in one way or another. Not lives, but drugs.
I'm like, ugh.
Very well.
Best I can make do without my relaxing.
Very well. I accept your sacrifices, and I will let Christina know that you are truly remorseful for the misunderstanding. So yeah, any final thoughts about the book or anything like that?
I'm just picturing the pool just like full of weed and coffee grounds swirling around.
It's just a stimulating matcha
Very
blend.
stimulating
Yeah,
bath.
the goddess is about to have a really nice weekend morning.
Oh yeah.
That's a wake and bake for sure.
Anybody have any final thoughts about Mortal Follies? I really enjoyed it. If you're into this kind of story, I would recommend it to somebody who's into fairies, who's into kind of like a wild historical romp. But I wouldn't recommend it as like a sweeping romance. I think, Tashai, if you want to give Alexis Hall a chance, A Lady for a Duke is definitely the book that you should read. It is historical, it is yearning, there's trans characters, and it is just good. So
Nice.
take it from a goddess. That's the one. That's where you could start. There's other ones too. I think boyfriend material or husband material. I hear good things about it, but I haven't really read it. But A Lady for a Duke is historical and more of your bag. You know?
I'd be down to check it out. Extra thoughts. I really wish that this had just been closer to my narrative bag, but again, and I told Ivan this when we were chatting about it earlier. I wouldn't rate it. It's the kind of book that I wouldn't rate because it's a not fair, because it's one specific like narrative preference of mine. It doesn't mean it's a bad book, and it doesn't mean that it's not a fun story. A lot of people are going to enjoy the book, and I do think it's a good story. It's just not my flavor. So like with books like this, I won't rate it because it's not fair to like other people to think that it's not a good story when it is. It's just not my favorite flavor.
Yeah, I agree with Tosh. I think it's gonna appeal to a very specific type of reader. I think it's one of those books, like if you are a fan of Alexis Hall and want to be one of those people who's like, I've read all of the books they've ever written, kind of thing, like you're gonna have a good time. It's not a bad book. I enjoyed it. Like Chris, I was also laughing out loud at multiple parts. I just think you need to be like aware of what you're going into. Like it is definitely not just like your typical kind of loving, yearning, sweeping historical romance. But as long as you actually read the back of the book, unlike me, you should know exactly what you're getting into. And then it wouldn't be an issue. And I think with the narrative style, I oftentimes, when I'm contemplating a book to get from the library or to buy, I will download the sample, on my e-reader and just like check it out. So I think this is one of those books where like you will know right away if it's for you or not. So like just download a sample, read a few pages, and you will right away know like, okay, this is going to be annoying for me, or no, I actually dig it. And that's just like an easy way to figure it out before you commit to buying or getting it from your library.
So we're done reading this, but are you reading anything else aside from, romance books?
So I just finished a book today and haven't started a new one. So I'm just going to share the one that I finished today, which was Thirsty by Jas Hammonds. Not out until the spring, but if you are a faithful OLL follower, you might remember that we read We Deserve Monuments last year, and it actually won some awards at our OLL Awards episode if you haven't seen it yet. So this is Jas's sophomore novel, and it's really, really good. And it's about reevaluating your relationship with alcohol and what kind of person you are when drinking versus not drinking, and how hard it can be to make those not just self-evaluations, but those decisions to change in any way, shape, or form. And so if you liked We Deserve Monuments, I think you would like this one. It's just as intense and kind of heart-wrenching. It was really, really good.
I got a Once Upon a Book Club book box because I felt like it. I was like, oh, I wonder what books they've got going on. So I bought one for Valentine's Day, and it has Raiders of the Lost Heart.
I almost picked that one for book club this year.
So I got it in my book box. So TBD if I decide to change one of my picks, but it came in the mail today, and it's got, how do you turn your fucking background off?
Sorry, I'm so excited because that was literally I was so close to making that a pick. So if you do not decide to change one of your picks, but you would like to buddy read it and do a bonus episode or something, like I really want to read it too. I almost picked it for book club. I've heard good things, so I would be down.
But they have my bed. I'm gonna start, and then I'll like see where I go.
You let me know. No pressure.
I'm very excited to read it because, and this is why to me it's like worth it to do the Once Upon a Book Club boxes. I got a bunch of packages that I open when I get to the page. So it's little presents that you open that have to do with the book. And this one that I touched, I think it's a backpack. Like I literally think it's a backpack. I bought the Bridgerton box like 3 years ago. didn't open it because I just put it somewhere, forgot it existed, opened it around Christmas time, and it came with a little like notebook and some gloves and a quill. And I'm like, so now I'm like, yay, extra presents for me from me.
It's
That's
to
so
reward you for reading the book. It's to reward you yourself.
Yeah, and it's cute because then when you get to the right page, there's a little post-it that's like, open your present now. And it's like, yay, presents.
That's adorable.
That's
Listen,
really
Math.
cute.
This is
I would be very
December.
excited. I would be very excited to watch a bonus episode. Let me know how I'm interested in reading it as well, but I don't have a copy of it. I'm just gonna put that out there. It could happen. I would love for it to happen.
I need to I might start it and then see how it's feeling and then hit you guys up. But I definitely will like try to make a point of recording opening the thing so that y'all can see what's in it, because there's like 4 or 5 little packages. I was like and
Very cool.
according to girl math, I bought it in November, so it's free.
Paid for itself. Okay, so I just started. I picked this up, and it's truly only because my birthday is coming up in a few weeks. I picked up Candelaria by Melissa Lozada Oliva, literally just because my birthday is El Día de la Candelaria. I don't think it has anything to do with that, but I just thought it was fun, and that's why I picked it. And
I've heard really good things about that one.
Yeah,
too.
I enjoyed Dreaming of You. I know like not a lot of people did, but I enjoyed it. And so when this book came out, and I think Lupita Reads recommended it or did something with it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did like that. Let me go pick it up. Candelaria is like my birthday. It's what happens on my birthday. So I felt a connection to it.
I will say that I feel like I've seen people who I remember saying that they didn't like Dreaming of You say that they did really like this one. So I haven't seen anyone so far say that they didn't like it, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Maybe I'll be the first. Maybe I'll be the first.
Oh, no. I think you'll like it.
All right. Woo, so that's what we're reading. And next month, we are going to be reading Tashai's pick. New rotation, y'all. We are going to be reading Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. Very exciting. This is going to be a reread for me because I absolutely love this book and I don't mind it. We're going from like Sapphic in history, and now we're going into a small town with a lot of drama. And y'all have watched Gilmore Girls? Both of y'all have watched Gilmore Girls?
I watched a big chunk of it because you all told me to watch it, but then it got to a point where it was like it was too much, and I had to
got
stop.
annoying.
That's fine. That's fine.
But I definitely saw like
fucking
the bulk of it, like enough to understand all the references.
Right. I don't think that this Delilah Green Doesn't Care. It doesn't take place in Stars Hollow, but the small town and like the dynamics between the characters felt very much like it was set in
Love
that. So it was good. I can't wait to talk about it with y'all because I read it a little while ago and I loved it. I thought it was really good. It's one of my go-to like, oh, do you like Sapphic books? Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Like I think you like it.
Love Gilmore Girls. So this is me. And also this would be me, except shorter, browner, about the right boob size, honestly.
Yeah, I can't wait. Okay. So you know what we're reading, and you know what we're reading next month. So that makes this the end of our episode. I hope that you enjoyed your time here. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Make sure to check out the bonus episode that I did with my sister for The Dude Gets Desperate by Diana Quincy, and our Only Lovers Awards, which should be up by the time that this goes up. Okay, bye. Thank you for making it to the end of our episode and spending some time with us. You can support Only Lovers Book Club for free by subscribing to our shows and sharing our episodes. Make sure to like the video and leave us a comment if you are on YouTube. But if you're listening, don't forget to leave us a review either. It helps people find our show and it'll keep the goddesses off our asses. I'm serious. They want more reviews. We can't do it. We need you to do it for us. You can become a supporter on Ko-fi or buy books from our bookshop. All of these links are in our description box. You can follow us on Instagram at Only Lovers Book Club.